Office of Institutional Equity and Diversity. No No Boy is an immersive multimedia work that blends original folk songs, storytelling, and projected archival images, all in service of illuminating hidden American histories. Please help me welcome No No Boy.
It's nice to see all y'all, or your beautiful eyes at least. So we just, my partner Amelia, who will join me for most of the evening, but this first song is all mine, because I need your applause to live. My partner Amelia and I live down in Portland, Oregon, and we drove up to Seattle to play, or to record some stuff with our friends at our Seattle radio station last week, and then we're driving around the peninsula and went to Olympic National Park, which is a lovely wet place, and came down here, and it's been a nice adventure. Just started playing shows again because there was this thing called COVID that happened, and was in Houston and Milwaukee the last couple weeks, and it's really nice to be back in the Pacific Northwest. We moved here from the East Coast a week before the pandemic. We moved to Portland, so we haven't gotten out much. So it's very nice to be here and be on your lovely campus. Tonight's show is going to be a little history. It's going to be a little music. So if you like history and you don't like music, there's something for you. If you like music and you don't like history, something for you. So it's like a Vietnamese wedding. It's a win-win situation we got going on here. If you know any writers for Ted Lasso, that's my audition. I'm going to start with a family story. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee originally. Music City, USA. I was born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s. Well, still growing up. It was an interesting place to grow up as a Vietnamese American kid. We didn't have all the lovely woke high schoolers we do today to set us straight. So it's kind of a keep your head down situation for me growing up in Nashville. And didn't grow up around any of my family except for my mom. My Vietnamese family, they're all over in France. So this song, it's sort of the modus operandi for this project. It's a song about not being able to ask my grandma questions before she passed away, and wishing I had. And to all of you who still have grandmas, please sit them down and get them to tell you their story. And or if you're a grandma yourself, or grandpa or whatever, pass those stories along. They're important. Soft language barrier, the child of an immigrant. Before the banh mi trucks were cool, lunch table embarrassment. That scene with the border guard last night on a continent. Say, what was the view like, knowing that you might never come back again? There are so many things I should have asked of you. Sometimes family trees cut cruel. What did you make of Tennessee in 1988, all covered in snow? The winter my little brother was born, we carried him up the hill to our home. I wish I had taken French a little more seriously, 'cause I remember singing to you when you were dying in Saint Denis. There are so many things I wish I'd have asked you then. Sometimes songs don't get a nice end. Thank you. I'm going to bring my partner Amelia Halverson out now, who is right there. She hadn't been able to tour with me at all this year because she is a law student, but this show worked out to be on her spring break, so.
Yeah, so happy to be here.
Lucky you. We're going to carry on now with a song that looks at a lot of overlapping histories. So I was doing a PhD, which is like 50th grade, I think if you add it up. And I had some other friends who were also doing their PhD, and good buddies of mine helped me research this project that I do. And we decided in a very dumb move for our spring break that we would go to the Mexican border and help refugees instead of going further, like to Cancun or something. And it was the most depressing spring break I've ever had in my life. But it was important. We kept hearing about refugees, immigrant crisis, the border. And up in our cloistered little ivory tower, wonderful school, everyone was getting really ratcheted up and angry because these refugees weren't being let in. And I didn't know who any of these refugees were. I didn't know if they were nice people or mean people or just humans like the rest of us. Well, I assumed they were. And I kind of had a problem with the flattening, just sort of people getting upset about something reduced to one word, like groups of millions of people, just refugee or immigrant, having come from a clan of refugees myself, and knowing my mom would never use that term to describe herself. And so we wanted to go down. We wanted to see, like, if people do need help, well, we want to actually use our time and our privilege to go down and try to help, donate money, work with little kids stuck at the border in these little schools, just see what's happening, see what we're so angry about before we get so angry. And I wrote this song about the first time I went down there. It's called Crystal City, and you might be wondering why there's a map of Peru behind you. This goes to the overlapping histories of these contested borderlands, in particular Texas in this case. So we flew into Houston and got some of the best food in the world that these wonderful Vietnamese people, they mix like Cajun food and Vietnamese spices, crawfish, it's amazing. Talked to some old refugees, my mom's generation, wonderful people who have seen things I can't begin to understand and have some very conflicting politics with mine because of that. Then we drove to a place called Crystal City. And the reason there's a picture of Peru behind me is because during World War II, 2,500 Peruvians of Japanese descent were taken by the American government from Lima, like rounded up during World War II, put into like concentration in Lima, and then taken to Texas to be used as POW trade bait. It's this internment camp that housed the Italians and Germans as well. A family camp is what they called it. And we were walking around this old site. You can still see the basin of the old pool where people used to swim, and just all this complicated history. And again, layers, right? So I started talking to those Vietnamese refugees and this like ghost of this Asian American internment camp. But this hidden history of Asians coming from South America, which we rarely talk about, where they were settled long before they were settled in the United States. And then we went down to the Mexican border and saw refugees today, just fresh out of detention centers, ICE detention centers, some friends that I still keep up with. Met some pastors trying to do good work, and then went across the border and just saw people who wouldn't even be allowed to say, I need help on our soil. And it was just too much. It was just too much. I had a nervous breakdown, couldn't handle it, and I was the privileged one. So Lord knows what some of my friends were going through, who we met down there. So this is a song about overlapping histories. I won't talk as much between every song, I promise you, but this is called Crystal City. I'm I'm going down to Crystal City, and I think of Hideo Sun in the sun, strumming his mandolin. Roman border towns, find a place called Dilly, drink some margaritas down, watching history go round and round. This round's on me tonight, boys, this round's on me tonight. Us three will be alright. They can't say the same thing inside. Poner el dedo en la llaga. Algo es algo, menos es nada. I'm going down to Crystal City. When Nancy told me that 2 girls drowned, pretty young ghosts cross a border for a cage. You pay attention to your ghost if you wanna know a better age. Poner el dedo en la llaga. Algo es algo, menos es nada. I'm going down to Crystal City, and I'll think of Hideo San in the sun, strumming his mandolin. Thank you very much. So this poster behind me is, I got a good friend named Joy. Joy lives out in Hawaii. Man, she's getting up there. She's in her mid-late 90s at this point. Still with it. She's a woman who I email with at least once a month. She's like a grandma to me. And I met her doing this project because I lived in a place called Wyoming. It's a state that isn't Wisconsin, that very few people live in, more antelope than people. And they like it that way, and I liked it that way. And it was a beautiful place. I just read books and climbed mountains. And when I was climbing mountains, going around the state, I had some teachers who told me to look into some history. And ironically, I told you, in Nashville, I didn't have a lot of friends who weren't white or black, so I didn't really know where I fit in. In Wyoming, one of the whitest states in the country, ironically, I kind of felt like I became Asian American there. And it was through the study of history. I was out on these rock climbing trips, climbing around these desert towers and mountains and stuff. It was very neat and dangerous and cool. And my teacher said, you should go check out some of these historical sites nearby, because you like that stuff. And I said, I do. And I said, go see this place called Rock Springs. And in 1885, 28 Chinese miners were massacred by a white mob, and the entire Chinatown was razed to the ground. People sent running for miles across the border down to Utah. The Chinatown was never built again. And I went and I made a pilgrimage to that site. And then I drove directly north where someone told me about a concentration camp, an American concentration camp during World War II. Not like the death camps in Germany, but still, they took all these Japanese American folks who hadn't done nothing wrong but be Japanese. They locked them up in these 10 concentration camps across the country, 120,000 people. And one of them, Heart Mountain, was in Wyoming. So I went there, and I just walked around the land. I kind of felt some stuff, and I went into this little rinky-dink museum, and it was kind of boring, like a lot of history museums. But I saw this picture. Of a jazz band with all Asian American faces. And it blew my mind, because I'd gone to a jazz college. I went to Berklee College of Music and took 4 jazz history courses. And not once did I see anyone who looked like myself in any of those goddamn courses. And here was evidence of an entire Asian American jazz scene that even when sent to a concentration camp, when the government put up this poster on your street, and then they rounded you up and put you into these horse stalls and fairgrounds until they could build these concentration camps and send you out to the middle of nowhere, even when they told you that you're going behind barbed wire with guns pointed in and you searchlights and living in these shitty little barracks, that you can bring only what you can carry, 2 suitcases. Some of these lovely, wonderful, idiot musicians said, I'll bring my trombone, or I'll bring my trumpet. And I felt like I've discovered a history. I never felt very Asian American until that moment. And it was really because I found musicians. That's the only way I can identify with history. I can't understand presidents or governors or generals. I don't have any aspiration towards that stuff and never will, but I can understand playing music no matter what. And goddamn, what a story. This next song is about that camp at Heart Mountain. And it's a product of doing all this archival research, flipping through newspapers that were printed in camp, reading everything I could, and finding the little stories, these little bits of life to unflatten history in this event, to take it out of black and white, put sound and color back in. So to thinking about the old men in these communal, horrible, shitty bathrooms getting together and singing these old Japanese songs that are now lost to time. Thinking about the root cellar that the incarcerees dug out the size of a football field to store the vegetables that they had turned from the arid land. And all the little moments of life, because even when life is bad, even during the war that my mom was living through, even during the Japanese internment, there was always, if you survived, agency in life, and that should be celebrated and inspiring to us. So this is called 2 Candles in the Dark. And it's just that. It's just making light in a really dark situation. Don't it feel like a movie, teaching this girl how to waltz? Left feet she might have 3, but she sure feels nice in my arms. Old folks singing old songs, playing me agreed upon key. My eyes are stuck on her eyes don't leave her feet. All this girl, no class ring. Maybe this is more than a lot. Brown boots, a dirt floor. We're dancing like 2 candles in the dark. Pretty outlaw call a 1:15, like knuckles on a barrack door. She got a brother down in Toho Pass. I saw that name once in a jewelry store. Wind around past the skaters and pond, just looking for a cut in the wire. And don't you stand there, look inspired at this girl, she gets wild. I miss the garden at the Golden Gate Park. Young blood and old songs, we're dancing like 2 candles in the dark. Tell you, man, it's like some movie, and she's just tailor made for the part. Lamps licking the roof beams, she's got good looking down to an art. Hear the old folks sing them old songs, the background just fades away. Our coffee can fire's almost gone. She says, I gotta get out of this place. All this, girl, a pinpoint. Man, it's the moment you feel a spark. Brown boots, a dirt floor. We're dancing like two candles in the dark. Dancing like two candles in the dark. We're dancing like two candles in the dark. Thank you so much. We've had a real pleasure being here. That's good enough. The last couple days. You really do have a lovely campus.
So beautiful.
So beautiful.
So many trees.
What else, Amelia?
And grass.
Yeah.
And we came on a sunny day, so love the sunshine.
That's good. What else do you like? Tell the good people.
I think that's enough.
Don't reveal too much. Man of mystery. So we went for a walk. We're down in this nice hotel on the water, and just hop, skip, and a jump away is, what's it called? The Chinese Reconciliation Park. Very on brand for us. Yeah.
So obviously we had to stop by.
Yeah. And man, so I was telling you about Rock Springs, 1885, one of the worst massacres in American history. And 1885, you find people in Tacoma expelled all your Chinese. Wow, that's fucked up. But you built a park, so that's good. But that was the order of the day. You weren't alone. There were riots all up and down the West Coast and massacres. Just on the Snake River border in Oregon, there's a place where driving around, Amelia said, "Hey, there's a place called Chinese Massacre Cove. Wonder what happened there."
Yeah.
These maps, these little placards, they got a lot to tell you. It's that overlapping history. It's too much, but it's worth sitting with, you know. The reason I write songs instead of papers is because I just can't do the argument-driven narrative kind of historical stuff. I need to admit to myself that history's a mess. And you come from the kind of family I come from, dispersed all over the world because of a war, multiple wars, and multiple masters in my mom's lifetime even. It just doesn't make sense, but it happened. And I think just for me, writing songs allows me to say, this is a mess, but let's sit with it. Let's sit with it honestly, and let's reckon with it. This next song is about Chinese American community that had a lot more success than yours in Tacoma did. It's about folks in New York. So I usually put visuals to the songs after I write them. I love digging through archives. That's a part of the PhD I love the most. Alongside collecting the stories, I guess. So everything, I liked it. But this is one of the rare songs where I was so captivated by this photo series of a evolving 1980s Chinatown in New York and in Manhattan and Queens that this photographer, Bud Glick, on behalf of the Museum of Chinese America, had taken, just sort of capturing young, vibrant, as well as like OG Chinese Americans, but people who are going on third, fourth, fifth generation at this point. Very interesting community. So it's one of the only songs I've ever written. Basically took the lyrics straight from the captions. If you've been to New York City, around Chinatown, this might be familiar. But it's about a personal hero of mine, this fictitious character I just saw in one photo, who I call Tony Ramone. Tony likes a Ramones. At least he thinks a t-shirt's alright. Lucky rabbit foot on, his hair is ready for Friday night. Neon lights paint you so pretty, bumming round Chinatown. Ducks hanging up in the window, waiting for Mrs. Chu to come down. With a bottle of top shelf baijiu she got from a brother back home. Now I'll head down to Catherine Street, find old Tony Ramone. Tony likes a Ramones, at least he likes a Blitzkrieg Bop. We share a pair of headphones and are caught up in a bachelor's law. The cat sweater lady selling sandals on the corner of Martin Grand. Her friend is bundled up like a child behind her, ray gun in hand. Fishmongers down on Henry perfume themselves with cigarette smoke. Now I'll head down to Catherine Street, find old Tony Ramone. Tony likes a Ramones, ticket stub from the Palladium. His sister missed the show, back to Queens on the F train alone. Neon lights flicker off so quickly, pale morning in Chinatown. I watch the funeral pass below the window, then I walk with Mrs. Chu down to meet Rebecca around the corner for the daily Columbus Park stroll. Now I head down to Catherine Street. Man, I'll split for Catherine Street. Head down to Catherine Street, find old Tony Ramone. Switch it up. Where did Millie? Okay, I'll do one by myself. Heavy stuff. So we try to find light the way that people do in heavy times, if they can. Gonna go to a place called Minidoka now. Minidoka is one camp over from Heart Mountain, where the Japanese were sent. And this is where a lot of people from this area, big populations of Japanese Americans in Seattle, of course, Tacoma, and Bainbridge Island. And a lot of them were sent to this place called Minidoka, sagebrush kind of deserts of Idaho, southern Idaho. Spent a lot of time there. Spent a lot of time collecting sounds. So I'm a historian, I'm also an ethnomusicologist. It's a fancy way of saying I like music a lot. So I like to go back into these histories as a musician, and I like to write lyrics of songs about these historical moments that I find, these little moments that kind of flesh out history a little bit more, complicate the mess. But I also love putting sound back into history. You know, people talk about Lincoln's Gettysburg Address and quote him, but I never hear about how his voice sounded that day, or if the wind picked up during a certain line, or if some asshole in the back was like talking through it. That stuff's important to me. Someone who takes listening seriously, which I think we should all do more of, take listening seriously. So I go to these places and I record just the ambient noise, birds and the sound of the plants and the rivers going by, and then also like knocking on the barracks. I kind of make them into rhythms. So I find it really interesting to then write music over that or sing on top of that. And I might go to a museum and find an old flute that was played in this very camp, a shakuhachi, and then put it into this little keyboard right here, make an organ sound out of it. And maybe the most important thing is to have the actual voices. They're few and far between now, but some of these people are still alive who lived through this. And one friend of mine is named Chicky White, this beautiful jazz singer who was in Seattle when the war broke out. And then was sent to Puyallup, where there was an assembly center before they were all shipped off to Minidoka. And she sang in a band called the Harmonaires in camp, in one of these camps. And I got to talk to her a lot, and she actually sang for me. And sometimes I like to bring her voice with me. Just a little sample of a song she sang, try to fit it into a song.
You'll never know, you'll never know, you'll never know. You'll never know, you'll never know.
That's Chicky.
You'll never know, you'll never know.
Two-oh count, a good lead off third. Toss me something fast and low. I dreamt I saw a model plane this morning, flying past the boundary road. Caught the eye of Abel Grable, sliding into second to beat the throw. Minidoka, bottom 9. First baseman got married. They took an army truck out to Twin Falls. Spoke their vows in a hotel suite as a busted pump organ wheezed through the walls. Little sister butchering the wedding march. Some sick comedy to it all. Minidoka dressed in white. Minidoka. Snowdrifts bounce in the moonlight as the evening took the afternoon. Deep in the count, staying alive, 1,000 spectators, nothing better to do. Under diamond cut stars, horizon to horizon, some translucent milk glass moon. Minidoka dressed in white. Minidoka. Under diamond cut stars, horizon to horizon, some translucent milk glass moon. Minidoka dressed in white. Minidoka. Gonna carry on with a song. It's for my friends in Houston. I got a friend named V. She's a great photographer, Vietnamese American gal. And she told me over the pandemic she stopped talking to her parents because they're big Trump supporters, like a lot of our parents are. And it's very hard for a lot of second-generation Vietnamese Americans to understand, especially us protesty types. The song is just about, I don't know, trying to see their side. Realizing that just because someone wears a stupid hat doesn't mean they're a bad person. I speak from experience. I don't know if you know this on the West Coast, but in the Deep South, plenty of very, very conservative, anti-vaxxer, non-masker, gun-toting folks helped raise me. Very nice people. It's kind of the same as a Vietnamese American person. A lot of our parents, because of what they've been through, the shit they've seen, spending decades in re-education camps sometimes, finding refuge because of the saving graces of America, who also provided the situation where we needed to be saved. It's complicated. This song's called Tell Hanoi I Love Her. It's about being Southern twice over and not really understanding either one of my backgrounds. Twice Southern with 2 civil wars. Some fool to think that this place could ever be yours. The in-between, that's where we must explore. Tell Hanoi I love her. Jenny's mother in the nail salon. Bedazzled star-spangled t-shirt, Tiger Mom. Saw the flag on my hat, told me to take it off. Tell Hanoi I love her. I keep no grudge against some old world kin. Not letting go now, that's a bodhisattva's sin. I named my Chrysler after Ho Chi Minh. Tell Hanoi I love her. Do-do-do-do. I got an auntie, oh, but man alive. Last election cast a ballot for 45. If I'd seen what she's seen, I might see her side. Tell Hanoi I love her. I dream of junk sold to sail away. Wash your feet on a beach on Ha Long Bay. My mother said once that's where dragons lay. Tell Hanoi I love her. Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. We bleed as cheap as our enemy. Man, we die just as needlessly. Once I thought there was just one of me. Tell Hanoi I love her. Fumble with numbers, I just wanna sing. Ain't nothing sadder than some gook with an American dream. Sometimes I think the most communist things. Tell Hanoi I love her. Tell Hanoi I love her. Thank you. Thank you so much. So my mother, Jacqueline, came here in 1968. She got out early. She got out early because 1968 was the year of the Tet Offensive, so the North came down and really gave it to the South, militarily speaking, and targeted a lot of important South Vietnamese folks for assassination. One of them was my great-grandfather, my uncle. My mom, my whole family was in the house when the grenade came in. And shortly after that, she was sent to America because we had some good connections. We were all French citizens, had some ties to the U.S., and she started a life in Pennsylvania. She didn't see her family for 10 years because they all stayed till after the fall of Saigon in 75. She never saw her dad again. And she was one of the lucky ones. There's all these folks who left on these rickety little fishing boats. Not different from what you might have seen recently, all these Syrian folks stuck in the Mediterranean, being turned away from port. That was the Southeast Asian and the Vietnamese not too long ago. Almost 1 million people risked life and limb to try to escape the re-education camp situation that someone like my friend V's dad had to linger in for a decade. Just to go anywhere but their home. I have to think about how messed up it is. Like, we don't even have the country she, lived in as a kid, South Vietnam, let alone the city of Saigon. It's called something else. I couldn't imagine if Nashville changed its name to Donald Trump City or whatever. I'd feel so, I don't know. I don't love Tennessee necessarily. Shouldn't love a place just blindly, I don't think, but it is who I am. And what happens when someone changes your name like that? But my mom was one of the lucky ones. She's still here. Half of these people, these boat people, who just left just to escape, sewed diamonds into their clothes, whatever they could take with them. Half of them sank to the bottom of the South China Sea. It's all these ghosts and bones. And it's a tough history to comprehend, and it's too big. You can't be sad, or you can't be empathetic. You can't understand 1 million people at once. So a lot of these songs are just one story at a time. This next song is just almost completely verbatim from an old radio broadcast of the late 70s where one of these boat people was being interviewed, a Dr. Tran, who told this harrowing story that's fit for a movie. And he ends up in Montreal. I hope he's still around. I hope he's still doing okay. And it's kind of, again, these overlapping histories. I was thinking about Dr. Tran and this harrowing journey, and I was seeing all these folks in boats today not having a place to go, all these refugees. All these individual people piled up are just called refugees. And so this song's for Dr. Tran. It's for anyone who, unlike my mom, didn't find a place to go. It's called Boat People. 40 years ago, the doctor left on a boat. He'd never seen the snow or felt it in his hand. Sail until you see dry land. I can't get off the news. I can't get off my floor. The good folks go inside when we need you most. What do prayers do behind locked doors? Tuan went back to rebuild, only to watch Saigon fall. Now he climbs up Mont Royal. He makes a life in Montreal. Donated winter coats Barbie dolls. I wrap myself in books. They're talking about this band. I linger on bell hooks. She helps me to understand. Some of this ain't new. No, man. 14 hours by car. Cargo trucks and cabs, just to shake the cops. But Mom had to stay back. A Chinese safe house and covered tracks, 18 meters long, 200 bodies full, a simple compass and a map from a kid's geography book. Forget Ferdinand or Captain fucking Cook. Bodies bobbing in a rough South China Sea. Came across a Thai pirate ship scavenging. They ripped the doctor from his kids, bleeding. And I was under gun, then tossed into the water. He swam back to his son, held tight to his daughter, drifting through the night. As the daylight broke, a mountain in the dawn, off the Malaysian coast, sweet Pulau Bidong. He never cried so hard or so long. I can't get off the news. I can't get off my phone. My mother came here too 40 years ago. So if you see somebody's cold, you give them a cold. Thank you very much. It's a tough one to sing. Always is. Got two more songs for you, and then we'll be out front, hawking our wares. If you're old school or a cool college kid, we got vinyl records. We got CDs if you're a terribly not cool person. We won't judge you. Take your money just the same. And we got this wonderful postcards and bookmarks that Amelia has made.
And don't forget the brand new stickers.
Oh, brand new stickers. Mm-hmm. Nice. They're cool.
Yeah.
Your aunt liked it.
She was the first one to see them. It's not like it's just my aunt.
Well, she's very cool.
Yeah, approved of them.
Very cool lady. If you need a caterer, look up Ravishing Radish in Seattle. Say hi to Lizbeth. I'm going to carry on now, because that's what folks do. They carry on. You can't just sit there. I mean, you can and you should if you feel the need to. You should all stay seated. We'll carry on. So I was in Paris I'd gone to grad school to research something completely different, street musicians, not all this depressing Asian American refugee immigrant stuff. And it was a much more fun experience before I got into all this. I like what I do, but it's hard. It's difficult to do these concerts. It's not fun the way it was when I was a 20-year-old kid in a rock band, just singing about how shitty of a guy I was, and people still liked me, because I had a guitar. It's different now. These are kind of net losses emotionally, these gigs. But I really want to tell people these stories. And more importantly, I want them to ask their parents and their grandparents about their lives. And the more history we can all kind of gather and sit with together, the more we'll own it and the better off we'll be. I think. Could be wrong. I don't know. But I was in Paris studying street musicians. How great of a summer break is that? Much better than going down the Mexican border, I can assure you. Just playing songs in French and Italian with all these buskers from all over Europe and Africa and Central America, and just interviewing them and learning about like all this different kinds of music and running from the police and all this interesting adventurous shit. It was beautiful. And did this all over Europe. That was going to be my dissertation. Then I felt like I needed to do something more important. Maybe someday I'll write the busking book. Anyways, I was in Paris, and that's where all of my family went, to France, my Vietnamese family. That's why they weren't in Nashville. And my mom said, go talk to, she said, I have an old high school friend named Robert Vifien, and he owns a restaurant. He'll feed you. And I thought, okay, I'll go see your friend. This is great. And I was thinking, owns a restaurant, Vietnamese guy, so it's probably just like in a strip mall somewhere, like they are back in Tennessee. And just showed up in my American tourist outfit, flip-flops, t-shirt, shorts. I even brought a friend along, unannounced, because I thought it'd be like a $10 bowl of soup. Delicious, but cheap. Turned out he owns the nicest Vietnamese restaurant in Paris, which, if you're familiar, is a very fancy city. Nonetheless, he's a music lover, so he was happy to see me. He actually had found one of my old band's records in the Paris library, and that's how he reconnected with my mom, saw my last name, knew that it was her new last name. And we had the greatest conversation, but it was steered much more towards me. Like, tell me about like your music, your touring, blah, 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 blah. I was like, Robert, I want to learn about my mom. I want to learn about what it was like to be a teenager in a war, growing up in Saigon. What was it like to come home from Catholic school and have bombs going off in the cafes? How did you just not go crazy? How did you not just be fearful all the time? He said, well, actually, I was in a band. My eyes lit up. It was like seeing that picture of that Japanese jazz band. More ancestors. He said, yeah, I was in a band. It wasn't like yours. We weren't professional, but we were just some kids who, I would transcribe poorly English lyrics of Rolling Stones songs, and we'd sing them, and the Americans were there, and they needed, music to blow off steam when they were on leave in the clubs in downtown Saigon, so we'd play for them. They also needed bands to come out to play for them on their army bases, so we would pile up the helicopters. He said it very nonchalantly. We would pile up the helicopters with drums and amps and guitars and drugs and prostitutes, and then we'd fly over the jungle and people would be shooting at us, and then we'd land and we'd play Jimi Hendrix in the middle of the jungle. And I was like, that's the fucking coolest story I've ever heard, man. That's incredible. So I interviewed him, and that's turned me on to this incredible catalog of all these Southeast Asian, Thai, Cambodian, Vietnamese rock bands who took the music of the nearby or invading colonists, imperialists, and they flipped it around, put their own languages on top, and made some of the sickest rock and roll you'll ever hear. This is called the Imperial Twist. Can you give the world a twist? Just by doing the twist. At the moment the bomb went off, they were playing Purple Haze. I met Robert at his restaurant, c'était un arrondissement. The doors still echo in the jungle. Said your mother brought back 45s from Paris in 65, and we learned them note for note. some broken English rolling stones, fenders, girls, and dope. America provides. Oh, 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 Saigon teens. Oh, 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 Saigon teens. Can you give the world a twist just by doing the twist? Can you save the world with acid rock? I didn't know my mother's maiden name. That time in Texas when we was detained. Man, I've been back to old Saigon, but how much of you is lost when they change your name? Oh, oh, Saigon teens. Oh, 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 Saigon teens. Oh, 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 Saigon teens. Oh, 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 Saigon teens. And it was half a world away. The band got back on stage for decades to the day. Purple haze. Thank you very much. Gonna do you a favor and tune up. Thanks so much for coming out, braving certain death. I don't know if we can joke about COVID at this point, but
Too soon.
it'll always be too soon, Amelia. I hope you're doing all right, though. I really do. I hope you're drinking water. I mean that seriously. I hope you're taking deep breaths. And if you find that you aren't doing that, check in with your body during this tuning break. Maybe that's something to do this weekend. You live in a very beautiful city. And there's even more beautiful nature right around the corner. Maybe it's time to see some of that. Or for those of you who live on this very campus, go sit in one of those lovely multicolored lawn chairs and just chill and be young and be well and do something interesting with your life.
No pressure.
There is no pressure, I promise you. But I'm a Buddhist. What the fuck do I know? Can do one more song? Dedicate this to our friend Tina who brought us here this evening. So a round of applause
Thanks,
for her.
Tina.
Do one more song. It's not an encore kind of concert, so save your applause for yourself. Well, it depends how rich you are. Then it might be an encore kind of concert. You throw 100 on stage, you'll absolutely get another song. But in all seriousness, we'll finish with this song. It's a song, there's this great Canadian songwriter named Ron Sexsmith, one of my favorites. And he wrote this song called Lebanon, Tennessee, about a place he had never been to before, and it doesn't really exist. It does exist. It's very close to where I grew up in Nashville, and it's a horrible town. It's an absolutely terrible place. It might have gotten better since I was a kid, but it was just not much. And I was a kid journalist when I was in high school. I wrote for the local newspaper, kind of like a much more boring version of that movie, Almost Famous. But it was a really cool job. I got free CDs, which are like big MP3s. And I got to interview Ron Sexsmith. And I asked him, I said, Ron, you wrote this incredible song about this town right by where I'm from called Lebanon, Tennessee, and it's gorgeous. It's like a pastoral, like Forest of Ardennes kind of shit. It's amazing. But have you been there? He said, no, I haven't. Well, I hadn't when I wrote the song. He said, I just was a bike courier, which is the all-time greatest job for a songwriter to have, a bike courier in Toronto. And he said, I saw this package with a return address, Lebanon, Tennessee. And I said, wow, that sounds like the most beautiful place. And I said, well, have you been there since? He said, yes, I have been there since. And I said, what do you think? He said, it is not the most beautiful place. But it has this song. And the song is really just about what so many songs are. It's a chance to escape. It's what music does for us. I'm sure a lot of you are musical in the audience, right? That's why we love it, because just this crazy way that we've invented these machines and utilized our voices to manipulate air molecules is something not short of alchemy. It's beautiful. It's incredible to be able to sit here and listen or to sing or to share in these moments. I'm not a big God guy, but it's about as close as I get. And so this next song is sort of like my Lebanon, Tennessee. It's called Little Saigon. It's about a place that doesn't really exist. It's about the memory of a place called Saigon that no longer really exists the way my mother knew it. And it's about a place where, growing up in Nashville, I could fit in. There would be other people who looked like me, and I understood their language and all this kind of stuff that I'm bereft of. And there are little Saigons, but they're mostly just like big concrete malls with a very confused South Vietnamese politics. And I don't know. So this is about a place that doesn't exist, and that's why I sing. So it does, at least for the next 3 minutes. I heard about a place called Little Saigon, where everybody's got my face, so mine won't have to grow so long. Palm trees, a terrace seat, a cafe where I belong. Oh, I think I'd like to go to this place, Little Saigon. One day I'm gonna go to a place called Little Saigon and buy shoes in a little shop and silk from Vietnam. Take lessons on the Dan Bao and play an old folk song. Oh, I think I'd like to go to this place, Little Saigon. Je vais aller à Little Saigon. J'enverrai une lettre en français à ma maman. C'est pas Saigon, maman, mais je serai content longtemps. Oh, je voudrais aller à Little Saigon. One day I'm gonna go to a place called Little Saigon and listen to the CBC band loud headphones on and walk around the indoor mall where the language sounds like song. Oh, I think I'd like to go to this place, Little Saigon. Oh, I think I'd like to go to this place, Little Saigon. Thank you. Have a very nice evening, and say hi at the merch table. Appreciate you.